Hello there, men, and welcome to the Masculinism Movement channel, a place for men to be men and talk about masculinity and men's issues. I'm your host, Brian Crawl, and today I'm going to be talking to you about the 10 things I hate most about women. Yes, all women. And I'm aware that I'm being misogynistic. For any of you women or male feminists out there who want to call me out on it, let me save you the energy. That's actually my intent with this video. In this video, I will in fact be making a case for justified misogyny. So if you are a female or a male feminist, there's the fucking door, because this video is not for you, bitch. So why don't you just fuck off? And I feel I must speak out in this manner because, you know, women are constantly calling men out for their bad behaviors and saying that we are toxic and such. So, you know, I feel as though it's only right that I be able to do the same. And I've found that when feminists and, gender studies students and such hear the types of things I say or read the types of things I write in my article exposing Misandry, they accuse me of being bigoted, essentially being prejudiced against women, which is something they say when you make broad, sweeping, negative generalizations about women. And yet, I never backpedal when this happens. Why? Because there are, in fact, some things that I do hate about women that, yes, all women have in common. And I feel as though if women can do things like campaigning against masculinity, with things such as the Me Too movement and this concept of rape culture, claiming that all men are predatory harassers, and then coming up with these mottos such as, yes, all men, well, it's only fair we do the same for women. So while I do not think that it constitutes bigotry to call out women on their sexism against men, called misandry, as I did in my article on it that is linked below, and these feminists and gender studies students have read the damn thing, and then instead of responding to any of the things that I said in this extremely thorough expose, they just say that I'm being bigoted by generalizing about women, just making these general statements. And yet again, they do the same thing with men, and they don't call it sexism, which is part of their misandry. And so while no, I do not think that it constitutes bigotry to make broad sweeping generalizations, I would actually like to take a video to put out there some of the real misogynistic, bigoted thoughts that I have against women because of the fact that I believe they are justified. And if feminists can make sexist statements about men and put out man-hating articles and videos and content and such as, that famous article called Kill All Men or whatever, I should be able to use my free speech to do the same to women. And I do have some justified gripes against them that, even though they may be misogynistic, I feel are valid. So here is just my top 10 for you men out there. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Number 1, they are shallow and superficial and vapid and often stupid. There are really no women on earth who will intellectually challenge you as a man as much as other men do, or as much as you do for yourself. Men are the philosophers of the world, not women. Women are very simple-minded creatures. 2, women are immature and often have a propensity to act in very childish manners. This is due to a number of factors. It is partly due to neoteny, which means that men have mated with younger women more, and thus youthful genetic traits get selected for. So women who may be older but look younger and act younger get selected for more than women who are older and act their age, and seem more mature, because that makes them seem less fertile. A woman seeming youthful is an indicator that she's more fertile. So there's this evolutionary biology and evolutionary psychology to women's maturity and childish tendencies. And they also all tend to have some sort of trauma from childhood, or some sort of childhood issues, like issues in how they related to their parents, like daddy issues, or some sort of insecurities from childhood, or whatever it may be. There is something that keeps them hanging onto their inner child because it is wounded or something. So that can also tend to make them act like a child or a teenager, maybe at times if it comes from when they were a teenager, especially if you trigger a certain emotion that is associated with that. And that leads me to number 3, which is that they all tend to have mental health problems and emotional issues and be prone to drama and toxic behaviors such as jealousy, scheming, invading privacy, rivalry, manipulation, shaming, gaslighting, rage attacks, verbal abuse, etc. And number 4, they tend to display characteristics of multiple personality disorder, even if they are not diagnosed with it and don't actually have it. Their personality and behavior does change, at least on a week-to-week basis, with the 4 different parts of their menstrual cycle. And then when they have their menses, they turn into like a psychopath. I mean, it's like dealing with a schizophrenic or something. And, then their mood can also vary day to day and even be different in different parts of the day, because they can tend to go through mood swings due to the fact that they have these mental health problems that make it very much like multiple personality disorder, at least in the symptoms. Okay, maybe not in the pathology that could get them diagnosed with it, but they are displaying very similar symptoms, understand? And then 5, they tend to have psychosexual health issues, such as sexual shame and guilt complexes, or insecurities, or hypersexuality, or other psychological issues regarding their sexuality. A woman who is sexually healthy on the mental side is almost non-existent, and lack of mental health leads to a lack of physical health, as you will see. Many women are completely out of touch with their own vagina and may not even understand their own anatomy and how it works, or even have had an orgasm before. Sexual dysfunction is rampant among women due to this sexual health pandemic, and women get STDs at greater rates too because they have too much sexual guilt and shame about their sexuality to even be able to buy a condom and prepare for having sex, or even talk about it with their partner and ask him to protect himself, right? They would rather not think or talk about it. Understand? Which leads me to number 6, which is that all women also tend to lack sexual skills because they have too many issues surrounding their sexuality to actually educate themselves about it. That would mean having to spend time thinking about it and doing the inner work to overcome their issues, and planning and executing sexual encounters and practicing sex more like a skill set, right? Which is something women do not want to have to do. They don't want to have any of the responsibility to do any of that. They don't want to have to put in work. And in fact, they are so narcissistic that they actually want to believe that owning a vagina should be enough for a man and make it so that there's no real sexual skills even necessary, maybe beyond a very minimal amount of effort. And what they want to think is that all they have to do is insert the penis into their miraculous female body part, and their magical female biology will just do the rest. But, only lower level men stick around for women who, act like they're sexual goddesses, and that all they have to do is put on some makeup and then act like a limp sex doll in bed and not actually do anything to pleasure him or really contribute much effort to the encounter at all, like what we men call a dead starfish. And let's face it, almost all women are pretty close to this and play a very passive role in sex, leaving men lucky if he's able to even get his rocks off at all. I mean, even the women who put in effort and have some skills, they don't really put in that much effort or have that much skills. It's not going to be anywhere near the amount of effort that the man has to put in or the amount of skill that he has to have in order to get her off. Understand? But moving on from sex, number 7 is that women are conformist. They are just wired for it. You see, because they are built so weak, they lack the strength for independence and are dependent upon others in society, mostly men, for their survival. This makes them highly conformist personality types who are very into groupthink and hive mind, group dynamics, and are going to be very agreeable, submissive personality types, which basically makes them a slave to their social conditioning and cultural programming. And so almost all women are really just a bunch of brainwashed NPC bots. Even women who are rebelling against something are doing so because they are part of a group that has told them to do it, who they are doing it with, right? So they are actually conforming to one group, a counterculture group. So they're still practicing conformity while rebelling. Most women can't even think for themselves and formulate their own independent thoughts and identity, and are just reciting pre-programmed scripts like an NPC or a chatbot. And then 8, women are weak. Let's be honest. Men are stronger than women, and women are weak in comparison. I once saw a competition between the leading female bodybuilder or strong woman, it was like, the strongest or most muscular woman in the world at the time, and some normal men who competed in arm wrestling, and she lost to all but one of the average dudes. And those dudes didn't even work out, okay? What happened was she beat the first guy, but it was super difficult for her to do so, and it took all of her strength out of her, and then she couldn't beat any of the guys after. And we've also recently seen the top female sports teams sometimes get beaten by teenage boys, schoolboys, in their own profession. And while the strongest women in the world are lifting hundreds of pounds, the strongest men in the world are lifting thousands. And there's absolutely no athletic feat of strength or sporting skill or, physical ability, whatever it may be, that male athletes do not beat female athletes at. And not even male athletes, but just regular men. And not even just regular men, but younger boys, like teenage boys. I mean, even the top female soccer teams in the world lose to young schoolboys who haven't even reached adulthood yet. And one of the world's top male soccer players I saw actually could take on an entire team of women and beat them. The disparity between strength and athletic abilities of men and women are so large and make women look just pathetic when feminists try to say how we are equals and women are as strong as men just because they have better cardiovascular systems, or they can do childbirth, or that they live longer, or something that's unrelated to athletics. And 9, they are bad with language and communication. Yet women always talk about the value of communication and honesty and such, and they do value these things, but then they all seem to suck terribly at them as well. Even female writers and authors have the same problems. They tend to over-poeticize language and use it too abstractly. They also tend to be more idealistic and less realistic with how they describe things. That is, if they are describing them in any kind of detail at all, or communicating well at all and using language properly, because women are often such bad communicators that they do very little of it, and the little of it that they do isn't done properly at an adult level. Even if the woman took communications classes in school or majored in communications and got a college degree in it, women just tend to not be able to communicate like adults. And no matter how they try to communicate, it seems like there's just no talking to them. And you can't listen to them either because you can hardly believe a word that any of them say. I mean, they're always talking out of their asses all of the time, even lying and being so manipulative in ways that aren't even believable, because to them, language is a means of manipulating the perception of reality. And they are oftentimes used to people believing them no matter what. So they will oftentimes take some pretty extreme liberties with how they describe what to them is reality. But then lastly, and perhaps most of all, women are hypergamous and exploitative of men. All women are wired with hypergamous mating instincts and use men for resources and then discard them as if they have no humanity, leaving them ruined and heartbroken and just monkey branching sociopathically. But it is just part of their animal nature, and it is inescapable. And there really are no nice girls out there who make good wives anymore. It is just your turn for her to ride you on the cock carousel that is her dating life. And no woman is wife material these days, unfortunately. So those are all the things that I hate about women, and yes, all women. And there really are no exceptions, at least no exceptions that don't prove the rules. All right. Generally speaking, yes, all women are like this. And I don't care if that makes me bigoted and misogynistic, or if you see it as hate speech. It's the truth, and I'm not afraid to speak the truth, and that is what I made this channel for myself and other men like you to do. So what about you? What do you hate about women, even if it sounds sexist and misogynistic? I mean, because let's face it here, female nature does have some serious faults and flaws that we need to start talking about, because no one really is. And if we don't, women are never going to hear it and do anything about it. And women are always calling attention to the faults and flaws of men, so we should be able to do the same without fear of being called bigots, or worse, being sexually shamed and emasculated for complaining about the ways women actually make us suffer and make our lives a living hell. And that's what this channel is, a safe space for us men where we can talk shit about women just like they do with their feminism groups. So if you have something you hate about them, then speak out and let it be heard here in the masculinism movement. That's what we are here for. It's okay to speak freely here and say things that are controversial or even misogynistic. We need to call out the negative tendencies of women and create awareness about some of those negative ways in which they are all, in fact, alike, and have this thing called female nature that has some serious toxic tendencies that we need to talk about and bring awareness to, just like they feel they have the right to do so with so-called toxic masculinity. And yet there's so much more that is toxic about women than there is about us men. So let me know what you hate about them below. But otherwise, that actually concludes this talk. Thank you for listening. If you like this video, be sure to hit the like button and share these messages with everyone by sharing the video on social media and talking about these things too. And lastly, check out the links in the description below for other resources for your masculine personal development, living the life you want to as an independent man. And if you can afford to donate, please do so with the PayPal link below, because your support funds me doing this work and fighting the good fight for men like you. And without it, this channel will not be able to survive, especially with the types of messages that I am putting out. You obviously know that there will be a lot of feminists trying to shut me down. So please send your support if you can, in any amount that you can, using that link there. And otherwise, take care of yourselves, men, because no woman out there is going to.